Also, a lot of eyes on this speech by Vice President JD Vance at a Las Vegas Bitcoin conference just minutes ago. The crypto industry, once considered fringe by many, is now being embraced under a new White House administration.
As you know, there's a new sheriff in town because after 4 years of mistreatment and outright hostility led by Democrat regulators, lawmakers in this country have a choice. Will we lead our nation into a future of financial sovereignty, of innovation, and of prosperity, or will we let unelected bureaucrats and foreign competitors write the rules for us? And I'm here today to say loud and clear, with President Trump, crypto finally has a champion and an ally in the White House.
All right, let's get to CBS News MoneyWatch correspondent Kelly O'Grady. Kelly, what stood out to you from those remarks we heard there at the Bitcoin conference?
Well, Mugo, I think overall, the headline for me is what a change for the crypto industry a few years makes. Last year you had candidate Trump speaking at that very conference, which was a huge credibility boost for the industry. And now you have a vice president headlining that conference. This is such the finishing of, I guess, what was crypto's coming out party over the last few years of really being taken seriously. So that was kind of my biggest takeaway. A couple of things that stood out to me, specifically of what he said. VP Vance said that roughly 50 million Americans own crypto, and he expects that to be 100 million soon. That would be a huge milestone. Of course, we've seen the price of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies creeping up since the president was elected back in November. He also said that the administration plans to, quote, enact a transparent and tailored regulatory framework for digital assets. There wasn't a lot of specifics there, though, and that is definitely something that the average investor, as well as people in the crypto community, have been calling for, that having a very clear regulatory framework, it's going to provide more credibility, more space and clarity for businesses and investors to play in that world. And so I think what I heard from VP Vance was a lot of, hey, crypto is here to stay. This is going to be, Bitcoin is a hedge against inflation. But again, it was more of a pump-up speech, not a ton of specifics. The one thing, though, I've been texting with a number of sources that are at the Bitcoin conference right now, and a lot of them said to me, I really wish that VP Vance would not be using Bitcoin and crypto interchangeably. Because remember, this is a Bitcoin conference. There is a specific following. They're called the Bitcoin Bulls. And those two things do get used interchangeably, which a lot of people were frustrated about hearing his speech.
Fascinating. That's a good point, Kelly. Very fascinating. Okay, so another thing of note is the name Gary Gensler. I hope I'm saying that correctly. It came up once again during the speech, and he's a former chair of the Securities Exchange Commission. Here's some of what Vance had to say.
Maybe the most important thing that we did for this community, we reject regulators and we fired Gary Gensler, and we're going to fire everybody like him.
All right, so Kelly, can you talk to us about Gary Gensler's legacy and why the crypto base is so anti-Gary Gensler?
Well, because a lot of them would say that he was very anti-them. So Gary Gensler was the SEC commissioner under the Biden administration. He stepped down January 20th. And one of the things that the SEC did under his time was bring a lot of enforcement actions against cryptocurrency exchanges, go after, in a very public way, the crypto community. They had a very specific idea of that. And I was at that conference last year, Mugo, and a lot of them said, we want to get rid of the, quote, chokehold that the SEC had on the industry. And in fact, in President Trump's speech last year, he said, one of the first things I will do is fire Gary Gensler. I was in the crowd and it erupted. And he said, wow, I didn't expect that response. And you heard it again today. What people are hoping for is a more pro-crypto administration, a more pro-crypto SEC. And that was certainly not Gary Gensler's legacy. So that was why you heard that reaction to VP Vance's comments today.
Oh, yeah, very important context there, Kelly. Thank you. Some other important business news today. Chip maker Nvidia will release its latest earnings report. Want to know, what exactly are investors looking out for when it comes to this one?
Well, a couple of things. One is going to be what you are or what Nvidia is hearing about demand for their AI chips, because that's not just about how Nvidia's business is going. That is going to tell the story about how a lot of other companies who are focusing and looking to AI as a future revenue generator, because if they are looking for the building blocks of AI, which is essentially what Nvidia provides with their semiconductor chips, that means that they're going to be investing in the AI space, that is going to continue to grow, as we have seen very much over the past few years. A couple of other things. How they are dealing with this trade war with China. China is a very important market for Nvidia to sell their chips into. They have a very specific chip that they designed to sell to China to get around all of the chip restrictions in the U.S. And that is right now in jeopardy based on some new restrictions that the Trump administration plans to enforce that were first put into place under the previous administration. And then finally, how tariffs are going to play into margins. Remember, Nvidia gets their chips primarily from Taiwan. That's where they are manufactured in. Taiwan has a 10% tariff on right now, and a larger tariff is delayed until July 9th. So that, of course, is going to be something that investors are looking for, because at the end of the day, what are investors focused on? They're focused on earnings and profits, and tariff policy could play a big role in how that develops for Nvidia, Mugo.
We shall see what happens, but you're right. Earnings and profit, that's really what matters when it comes down to it, right? Kelly O'Grady, thank you so much for your time today.